Hello, good evening. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan.
Welcome to Consider This, the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider the news of the day. Let's begin with news of Rafizi Ramli's acquittal by the Shah Alam High Court. The PKR Vice President was acquitted of disclosing the bank details belonging to the National Feedlot Corporation and breaching the Banking and Financial Institutions Act, also known as BAFIA. Now, this means Rafizi and former public bank clerk Johari Muhammad are fully discharged from their 30-month jail sentence, which began from February of 2018. Sharaad.
Right. Well, I'm not sure if this is a story that has final closure, at least in terms of the National Feedlot Corporation and that scandal, but it certainly does bring a particular phase in Rafizi Ramli's own political career to a close. So very interesting because in many ways he was a man associated with the expose politics of the day. A politics necessitated by the fact that much of our media failed to do their job. They failed to look deeply for stories where corruption was, where there was abuse of power. And I think in many ways whistleblowers were going to politicians to expose that stories.
Well, this was back in 2012 when both Rafizi and Johari were charged under the now defunct Section 97 of BAFIA. And this was, of course, for disclosing the accounts belonging to NFC and Muhammad Saleh, the husband of the former Wanita UMNO chief Sharizat Jalil. And you're absolutely right, Sharaad, because, I mean, this was, if you think about it, back in 2012, I mean, media was largely quite scared to report about this. I remember reporting about this and also being questioned about my reporting on the NFC case. So there was a period where it was almost difficult for the media to do investigative, reports into financial mismanagement. And, you know, you had politicians like Rafizi, which I might add, the Whistleblower Act does not fully protect, right?
Yeah, so there are many things that I guess this particular news will help us sort of focus again on. Do we have a Whistleblower Act that is
robust
and enables precisely the kind of things it was intended to enable, which is to shine a light in those dark corners of governance in government or in corporations where misdeeds might be happening. It also, I think it's a chance for us to talk about today. We're now almost 2 years into this Malaysia Baru. Is the media doing that kind of investigative work? Is it investing in investigative journalism, in creating those teams that need to do the deep investigations, using data, using archives, whatever it is at their disposal? Is that what we're seeing, on front pages of our newspapers or our portals, or are we actually seeing much of the same as we've had before, which is, politician A says something, politician B says something else, and that keeps getting reported back and forth?
That's true. I have to say it's probably the latter, but there are some, I guess, outstanding works of media investigations that have, made headlines in journalism today. Do you think that expose politics is still the name of the game today?
Well, I think the expose politics fills a gap, right? And to the extent that there is a gap and that gap continues, I think it will still be a possibility. But of course, let's just say the charm and the social courage of an individual like Rafizi Ramli is perhaps something of the past, because that was, created.
Why do you say that?
Well, I think it was created at a time when politics was of a certain sort, right? Now, those in opposition perhaps don't have the same desires or same tendencies or impulses as those who came up in a PKR or a DAP or Amana or PAS, in fact, as their predecessor. They had a very different politics. I don't know if it's going to be replicated in the federal opposition of today, in UMNO and PAS. There you
go. All right, we'll move on to other stories of the day. We have Electoral Reform Committee member Wong Chin Huat was denied entry into Kuching by the Sarawak Immigration Department yesterday. Now, according to Chin Huat, his request for medical attention was not entertained until he sought the intervention of Health Minister Dr. Zulkifli Ahmad. In response to this, the immigration authorities in Sarawak have rejected claims that they denied him medical attention.
Okay, so this goes back to what happened last year at G14, right, Melissa? In many ways, the country changed, but it changed in uneven ways, right? So depending on where you are in the country, post G14, Malaysia looks very different. In Sarawak, of course, what you have is a rebranded state government. It used to be Barisan Nasional Sarawak, now it's a GPS. Now, the question is, what is their DNA, or what is their political culture? Wong Chin-Wat, of course, very critical of his treatment, and he stands by is the narrative that he's put out. The important thing is whether denials it. We know that Sarawak has the right to deny entry to
Sabah
West.
And Sarawak, they have autonomy over immigration matters, right?
The question is that used or abused in ways, and we know that it was abused in the past, to deny entry to the federal opposition.
Well, Bersih activists as well. I think, some of the names that have been denied entry. Maria Chin comes to mind, Ambiga Srinivasan, we had Thomas Fan. All these people have been denied entry into the state of Sarawak. But here's the thing, Sharaad. Now, a lot of these activists once opposition activists are now government officials, or at least working with the government. So Chin-Wat was supposed to attend an electoral system workshop in Kuching on behalf of the Electoral Reform Committee. So he was on their government business. Right?
Yes, but what's also interesting is that Sarawak, once with the Barisan Nasional and aligned with the federal government, is now not aligned with the federal government and is in some ways an opposition state, right, in terms of the state government. So the dynamics are interesting. The issue is that regardless of the party affiliation or the government of the day, is there a kind of norm? Is there going to be a new normal for Malaysia in terms of democratic governance, in terms of saying, well, okay, this person might be critical of my government, state government, or in this case, the Sabah and Sarawak of the territories, but will they still have the right to come to the country, to the territory, because they are Malaysians?
Right. So, and this is a new normal. You're saying.
Well, I don't know if it's has it been established. I think is the question we need to ask.
And that's something we want you to consider tonight. Moving on to other news of the day, an MCA-backed group claiming to represent e-hailing drivers plans to sue Grab and the Transport Ministry. This is over alleged failure to protect drivers' rights from discrimination and unfair dismissal. So the campaign to protect the rights of e-hailing drivers in Malaysia said that it had issued a letter of demand to the ministry and to the e-hailing company with several demands. And some of the demands include recognizing the rights of e-hailing drivers under the Employment Act.
Well, in many ways, this is a fascinating area because, again, we come back to what exactly do we want the gig economy to produce. But, anecdotally, I must say, Melissa, I spend a lot of time in e-hailing services because I don't drive, see? So I need those cars. And I talk to those drivers and from various services. And what I've learned is that there is a level of kind of arbitrariness, or there's a level in which the normal procedures that might come after a complaint, that you get to defend yourself, those don't seem to exist. I mean, I'm just saying these are anecdotes I've heard from one side of the story.
I understood. And I think that what it boils down to is very much what we talk about when we discuss the gig economy. Are people who participate in the gig economy considered employees, right? So once you've established a definition, then it can fall under the Employment Act. But within the gig economy, it's about being part-time, it's about controlling your hours, it's about participation on...
You're a contractor.
You're a contractor. So getting definitions right, I think, are the crux of this problem.
Yeah, but also the question, I think, for the companies involved is whether they produce a narrative of concern about the people who participate in the ecosystem, whether they're contractors or whether they're workers. Do you care about them? Are you being fair?
Right. So no discrimination in terms of dismissal or hiring.
That's right. So if you hear that, this company is unfair, you might actually, as in the woke generation might, say, well, I'm not going to participate in your business because I don't think you're ethical. And ethics, believe it or not, is the new norm for especially a particular generation. It's not just the price point.
All right. Okay, after this, we're going to cross to Johor for updates on the Tanjung Piai by-election. So stay tuned to consider this. welcome back to Consider This. Melisa and Sharaad here with you. Let's turn our attention to Tanjung Piai by-election, where we're going to head into the final lap of the campaign before the polling booths open in the morning. So 2 pollsters have predicted conflicting outcomes. We have the Ilham Centre, which is expecting a comfortable win for Berita Nasional on the back of past support and a shift in Chinese votes. However, Institute Darul Ihsan is predicting a strong lead for Pakatan Harapan. So we're going to be speaking to both polling outfits tonight to hear their analysis of what's happening there in Tanjung Piai. First up, we have Khairul Arifin Muhammad Munir, who is a Senior Manager for Research at Institute Darul Ihsan. Arifin, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Can you explain why IDE is expecting a Pakatan Harapan win in Tanjung Piai?
What actually we have been given an info to the public is that there is a neck-to-neck possibility, either Pakatan Harapan or Berita Nasional. As a pollster or the people are doing research, we are conducting 2 face-to-face interviews before and then after election. We have seen there is a movement, a trend movement between before the election and after the nomination day. So we have done it before the nomination day and after the nomination day. And then we have done it face-to-face interview. So we found that the voting pattern between the 2 components that determine the factors there is number 1 would be race and then issues. So we do shift we do see there is a shift between the Malay votes and then the Chinese votes. But I would like rather to say it's a neck-to-neck. There is an opportunity for both parties for tomorrow, on which we can see, based on our survey, there is around 18% for the Malays who will make their decision at the nomination day, and 21% of the Chinese say that they will they are more towards. Their decision making process is at the nomination day. So based on that particular situation, then when we see that Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim came to the in Tanjung Piai, and also the existence of Datuk Sri Tun Mahathir there, I think there is a shift a bit on the momentum of the both sentiment from the both race between Malays and the Chinese. So for us,
can I just jump in there and ask you very quickly? Are you discounting altogether the other contestants? We have a candidate from Gerakan, we have a candidate from Bajasa. Will they be completely wiped out? Are you expecting them to lose their deposit?
Based on the previous PRK, by election, people tends to vote more because of the party rather than individuals. So we know that the battlefield there is between Berita Nasional and Pakatan Harapan. So if you look at the PRK sentiment, since from the by-election sentiment, from what happened from the last 9, the pattern is like that. Yeah.
So you mentioned Arifin, that you said Tun Dr. Mahathir's presence as well as Anwar Ibrahim's presence there could cause a shift. This is a swing to Pakatan Harapan votes, is that?
Yeah, I know that the Chinese vote is not 100%. There is the 100% same as the GE14, because some of them was not there because they are working outside. But there is because of the current situation, the Chinese voters, they are still they are basically smart voters. Depends on the current situation, and then when we ask a survey, what is the most important part that the concern of the people there is towards the issue on bread and butter, issue on nation building and job opportunity. So some of the voters, they will vote based on not for the or issue of sentiment, but a reality that people want a development in that area. Yeah.
Okay, let's hope that all voters are in fact smart voters. I think that is the hope for Malaysian democracy. I do want to ask you about something you mentioned earlier about out-of-town voters, basically the issue of people returning to vote in this by-election. Do you expect them to return, or do you think they'll stay away because it's just a by-election? And do you have any sense of the voter turnout tomorrow?
We predicted it will be not more than 68%. Yeah, because of there is a lot of people in Parliament Tanjung Piai. Some of them, especially the young voters, they are working outside. So about 56% of them might come, because most of them who work at the Johor Bahru area, Melaka or Negeri Sembilan, Johor Bahru, but those who are in Singapore, I don't think so, because some of them still working in Saturday. Therefore, why Sunday is the best for voting day rather than Saturday.
Finally, before we move on, Arifin, the question of candidates, is it candidates of issues? With Reject Singh, we have somebody who was a two-term MP. He's very well known. Then, of course, with Kamaini, we have somebody who's not actually had much electoral success. What do you think is going to be more important? I know you said that party is important, but have the candidates been using their personality or their history to impress the voter?
Yeah, I think the candidate also play an important role here, and then especially we have it is a tough fight, because the Malay sentiment of voting pattern behavior still been caught out with the race sentiment. We have Malay there about 57%, and you also have a Chinese about 41%. So for the Malay issue, the issue of you want to vote for the Malay candidate or the Chinese candidate still there, especially at the village area. So the sentiment there. So I think we know that the MCA was there and then more popular in terms of he been there across the past election, but some of the people throughout the interview also comment in his behavior, the way what he's done to that area. So I think it is a lot of things to battle out for what is here tomorrow. Okay, and one more thing.
Just very quickly, we're running out of time. Yeah? Very quickly, do you think Barisan Nasional took a good risk in putting an MCA candidate? Should they have gone with an UMNO candidate in the seat?
I can't say it, because politically this is the best for BN to put the MCA, because it's a political rustle. But to the ground, the sentiment is there. It's very difficult to determine, because we have two obviously Malay 47% and the Chinese is 41%. So you have two pool of factor based on race there for that. So I think it can be a 50-50. But tomorrow, I think the determination of there is two factors to be determined for tomorrow vote. Some of the voters turn out. The number two is whether the both party able to marking their supporters at the GE14 last time who come out. And then the third one, the endless influencer from the media social. Because even though the campaign stopped tonight, but we can't stop the media social.
That's right. That's a very good point. Arifin, thank you so much for speaking with us and for sharing those insights. Now, much appreciated. We're going to come back and speak to another pollster, the Ilham Centre. That's next on Consider This, so stay tuned. Welcome back to Consider This. Melisa and Sharaad here with you. Now let's speak to Professor Dr. Hamidin Hamid, Research Fellow from Ilham Centre. Thanks so much for joining us, Hamidin. Now tell us your prediction, or Ilham Centre's prediction, for the Tanjung Piai by-election tomorrow.
Hi Melisa. Hi Sharaad. Thank you for having me. I think for us in Ilham, we are predicting that BN will retake Tanjung PI with a very comfortable majority for tomorrow. That is still what we predict as we published 2 days ago. Yeah.
Hamid, do you think that each of the parties played their cards right? And we're talking about the main contenders. We're not kind of discounting the smaller ones. With Barisan Nasional in putting a Chinese candidate to the extent that ethnic identity is important, and on the Pakatan side putting a Malay candidate. Do you think these were important strategies to be played by either side, the ethnicity of the candidate?
Oh yeah, definitely. When we look at it historically on what happened, the voting pattern in Tanjung PI, I think it is understandable why Barisan Nasional want to put MCA candidate there. It's always be a strong ground for MCA, and we analyzed the voting pattern of the last election, the last couple of elections. Tanjung PI always be one of the highest turnover votes for MCA in the whole country. I think go against the national level. It's much higher compared to the national level. So in that sense, I think it is very much predictable that BN will put MCA as a candidate. And for PH, obviously, I think because it is a consensus in the last PRU as a new party, I think they stick to that and stay with the Bersatu. So I think it is the right choice of both parties to have the candidates in terms of that.
Hamid, can I get your thoughts on how you've seen this campaign period unfold? What do you make of the messaging on the ground?
All right. I think the messaging on the ground is very interesting. I think for us, when we look at it, it is a good thing, the sign that come out from Tanjung PI. It is very much looking back to where we want to have a moderate path in Malaysian politics, meaning not so much at the extreme of the political identity, where I can see from the last elections in Semenyih, in Cameron Highland, and also to some extent in Rantau, where political identity has been played up so high, and I think the political temperature is very high in that sense. So Tanjung PI kind of bring back the reality of development politics in Malaysia, the reality of moderate politics. So I think that's what has been kind of highlighted by the voters. So much that we notice in the discussion and demand by the voters is very much the issues of delivery system, the issues of clear policy by the administration, and what is being offered by the opposition party. So this is a good thing. We go back to the basics of talking about policy, we're talking about delivery and how that will benefit the people. I think Tanjung PI have a very different scenario compared to Cameron Highlands, Semenyih or Rantau.
Of course, we know that Pakatan won the seat with a very small margin. It didn't, in fact, get a majority of the votes. It only got the plurality of the votes. Will, the Gerakan and Berjasa candidates do anything? Is there possibility of spoiling or changing the dynamics? Berjasa taking pro-Barisan votes, but people who don't want to vote a non-Muslim candidate, for instance, or in the case of Gerakan, people looking for a third way, an alternative, Do you think those strategies will play out in tomorrow's voting patterns?
I think so far there is an element of protest. When we look at how the vibe in the ground, there is an element of protest that is happening. But we are not sure where it's heading to. I think to some extent, Gerakan and Berjasa definitely will be benefit. I think nobody can be sure how much it will spoil the chances of Pakatan and also the chances of Barisan Nasional to have a bigger majority. But I don't think the vote that go to Gerakan and Berjasa will make big changes in the majority of the winning party by tomorrow. I think
in your views, you're probably watching elections for a long time. Do you think the nature of Malaysian politics is up in the air now? The expectations of party loyalty or of race identification and such have disappeared. We hear that a lot of fence sitters. Do you think people who are going to wait it out through the campaign before they make a decision, is that something new?
No, I don't think so. I think yes, there is the element of political identity, the element of ethnic race, and still there. But I think at the same time, I think what is shown clearly in Tanjung PI is that people are more critical on how those issues being played. I think that is important for political parties to really understand what is happening. I think by overdoing it, I think we will be fired on that when it comes to that. So in that sense, in my point of view, when we look at what is being delivered, what is being demanded by the voters, is very much what in it for them. And this is the challenge for both sides to really deliver on that sense. So in that sense, that in my point of view, both have to be careful in kind of setting the demand from both extremes of the demand by the voters.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking with us tonight, Hamidin. I guess we'll have to find out how this pans out tomorrow. We're going to be watching this neck-and-neck race at Tanjung Piai. That's all the time we have for you on tonight's episode of Consider This. We'll be back with you on Monday at 10 p.m. I'm Melisa Idris, with me, Sharaad Kutan, signing off. Have a great weekend. Good night, folks.